It's an extraordinary ruling. Released this morning, the Waitangi Tribunal has found Maori, in making up more than half of the prison population, have disproportionately been discriminated against by not having the right to vote. Now, no prisoners have the right to vote, but the tribunal recommended repealing the section of the Electoral Act in its entirety and giving all prisoners the right to vote. The last time the Act was touched was in 2010 when the National-led government passed an amendment stripping all prisoners of their voting rights. The case for prisoners to get the vote was brought by 5 inmates, including, as he was then, jailhouse lawyer Arthur Taylor in 2014. It made its way all the way to the Supreme Court in 2018, where the blanket voting ban was ruled lawful. Now, the Waitangi Tribunal has responded to that with something approaching disdain, really. It's damning of the ban and of the reasons for it, whatever they were. Now, while the tribunal doesn't have the same powers as the courts, the lawyer for the group, Richard Francois, believes the government must respond promptly and overturn the ban. Richard Francois and Arthur Taylor are sitting beside me in the studio now. Great to have you both.
Good morning, girls.
Great to have you both. Great to have you both. Great to have you both.
It's been a long time getting here.
Yeah, it has been.
Yeah. Absolutely, wrecked with this ruling.
So Arthur, I mean, you were very alert to the many flaws and failings of the correction system.
I was. As far back as 2014, John, Justice Ellis in the High Court described this ban as constitutionally outrageous, quote, end quote. You know, I knew I was on the right path when I heard that from a High Court judge.
And did you look around you and think that prisoners are disproportionately likely to be Maori on a per capita basis, and therefore it is Maori who is suffering most of all?
Absolutely, John. I mean, the further you go into the belly of the beast, the further disproportionate effect that arises. I mean, I spent years in D Block, the end of the road of the prison system, and sometimes I was the token Pākehā there for 12 months or more, the only Pākehā. You know, it's just outrageous, you know. So something had to be done.
And this is you saying it's outrageous, but Richard Francois, actually, the Waitangi Tribunal report basically doesn't basically agree, it totally agrees, doesn't it?
It does. It agrees with every claim that we made right from the start. We started off arguing that it was in breach of the right to vote. We successfully argued that in the Supreme Court and got a declaration of inconsistency. But we were also arguing that it discriminated against Maori. We were unsuccessful in that regard. But the Waitangi Tribunal has come out and said that we are actually right. It is disproportionately impacting upon Maori, not only individually, but also within the community, to an extent that it could actually result in one more electorate if all Maori were entitled to vote.
And it's really, really strong. And if I go through it, I mean, we are used to the Waitangi Tribunal being at odds with the court because they have different things to consider. But this is one of the most striking findings against the courts that I can recall reading from the Waitangi Tribunal. We find that Section 81D of the Electoral Act prejudices the rehabilitation and reintegration of Maori prisoners. It is therefore in treaty breach of the principle of active protection. The question is, and I know you explored this, what was behind the ban in 2010? What was the argument for banning prisoners from voting?
Take that one, John. I think it was plain out vindictiveness on the part of it. It was prompted. This wasn't a government bill, remember? It was a private member's bill promoted by first term ex-All Black Paul Quinn. What the hell does he know about electoral law, you know? He probably thought it'd help him get re-elected, didn't, by the way. And, you know, that's what's behind it. But plain out vindictiveness.
And the Waitangi Tribunal can't actually find the reasons for. And I think the Crown was asked to submit the reasons for a voting ban.
Yes.
So the sense was, and I remember 2010, my sense was that it was a punitive decision to say if you commit crimes that send you to prison, you forfeit the right to participate as a citizen.
Yes.
Was that what it was
That's
about?
right. And the tribunal actually dealt with that. It looked at that and it said basically the punishment is going to prison. You know, if prisoners retain all sorts of civil rights, like they retain the right not to be treated inhumanely, they retain the right not to be tortured. This is one of the rights they retain. You know, the punishment is going to prison, being locked away.
And an argument you made, Richard Francois, was that once you are not on the electoral roll, you tend to not return to it, right? You tend to, so you get out of jail, and even if you've done your leg and you never go back, you may possibly never vote in your entire life.
Yeah, that's an insidious part of it, because while you're automatically taken off the roll when you go into prison, when you are released, you're not automatically put back on the roll. In fact, the onus then goes on to the prisoner who's been released to fill out all the documents and go through all the procedures to get back on the roll, which, for some people is not an easy thing. And by that stage, they've also become quite disillusioned by the whole system.
Right, I want to ask you one more question, Richard, and then I want to come back to you, Arthur, for a big picture thing. This question is, the Waitangi Tribunal is basically saying this entire section of the Act should be repealed.
Yes.
Are you calling on the government to listen to that? Are you saying to Andrew Little, this has to happen?
Well, yes, because we thought after the Supreme Court ruling, which the court declared that the legislation was in breach of the right to vote and inconsistent with the Bill of Rights, that the government would actually take some action and amend the law. It didn't, and indeed it said that it wasn't a priority. So now that the tribunal has come out with this decision, it reinforces that view that they have to take some sort of action, otherwise they are perpetuating a human rights violation, which the United Nations also is observing this case and won't tolerate at the end of the day.
And the Waitangi Tribunal has written a letter to Nanaia Mahuta, the Minister for Maori Development, Andrew Little, the Minister for Justice, and Campbell, the Minister for Corrections, saying this really explicitly. Arthur, can I ask you big picture about the Maori in prison? So when you said you were the token Pākehā in the block,
Felt like it.
yeah. And so this is a situation in which more than half the prison population is Maori.
In the case of women prisoners, it's 65% of women prisoners are Maori. And there's another point I want to make here, John. We hear a lot about the incarceration levels in the United States. I think it's about 600 and something per 100,000. Here in New Zealand, you just don't look at the whole prison population, just look at the Maori proportion of the population. It's approaching the United States, those levels. That's how serious it is.
And so you observe this,
Yep,
and this is your response to a sense of disenfranchisement.
It is, because virtually all prisoners are going to get out of prison one day, right? That's a given, right? Well, everything should be done to promote their inclusiveness in the community they're eventually going to return to. They got whānau out there, they got family out there. They want to have a say, however minute, in the laws that govern them. I mean, they're subject to the same taxation as any other Kiwi if they've got income. They pay GST every week on everything they buy. They pay tax. Why shouldn't they have a say in how that taxation's spent?
This is an extraordinary judgment. We'll try and get response from the government. I think probably Andrew Little is the most relevant minister. But
Andrew supports repeal of it, I'll tell you that right now. He said it in opposition, didn't he? Didn't Jacinda Ardern say it in opposition? We want this repealed. What have they done? We call on them to act now. Never mind words, we want action.
Arthur Taylor and Richard Francois. Arthur Taylor giving a demonstration of why so many cases you took were successful.
Thank you, John.
Excuse me. Arthur Taylor and Richard Francois. This Waitangi Tribunal report is available online, and it is quite an extraordinary judgment. I can't recall one like it for some years.